Every single night, millions of people lie down and fall asleep in the middle of nowhere in national parks and forests, in places with names like grizzly bear territory, wolf country, mountain lion range, and almost none of them get eaten. Because here's what's actually happening when you zip up that tent and close your eyes. You become 180 pounds of warm meat, completely unconscious, lying flat on the ground, breathing loud enough to hear, heart beating loud enough to track, and you cannot run. Not for the first 10 seconds you'd need to even understand what was happening. Your body is offline, and out there, 10 seconds is a lifetime. Strip away everything you think you are: the tools, the clothes, the campsite, the illusion of safety, and what's left lying in that tent is, by every biological definition that exists, the perfect prey animal. Slow, loud, blind in the dark, unable to defend itself, unable to flee. So why isn't it dead by morning? Why does something that checks every single box predators are built to look for get walked past night after night by the very animals that exist to find exactly that? Let's start with what predators are actually doing while you sleep. Picture a wolf, 300 yards from your tent, stopped mid-stride, not hunting, not moving, just listening. It heard your heartbeat change when you rolled over in your sleep. It knew you'd moved before you did. This isn't an exaggeration. A grizzly bear can smell a human from 20 meters away. A wolf, in the right conditions, can hear a heartbeat from over a mile out. A mountain lion could be sitting 30 feet from your tent right now, and you would have zero idea. They're not missing you. They're choosing to leave you alone. So the real question isn't can they find you? It's why, once they have, do they decide you're not worth it? Predators aren't built to be brave. They're built to survive, and in the wild, those are two very different things. A wolf that takes unnecessary risks doesn't live long enough to pass on its genes. A lion that charges into something it doesn't understand doesn't eat tomorrow. Every large predator alive today is the descendant of animals that were cautious, not fearless. And humans feel very wrong to them. We don't move like prey. We don't smell like prey. We don't sound like prey. A deer freezes when it senses danger. A rabbit bolts. Every prey animal on the planet has a predictable response to a threat, and predators have spent millions of years learning to read those responses. You don't have any of them. You sleep completely still for hours. You breathe at a slow, steady rhythm. You make no attempt to flee. You radiate heat. You carry strange smells, synthetic fabric, food, chemicals, fire. To a predator encountering a human for the first time, nothing about you computes. And animals are deeply instinctively suspicious of things that don't compute. Here's a fact that should genuinely unsettle you, because it's not folklore, it's a real study. In 2019, researchers at UC Santa Cruz ran an experiment on mountain lions in California. They didn't use guns, or dogs, or anything physically threatening. They played recordings of human voices, ordinary people just talking near pumas that had already made a kill. These are animals that take down full-grown deer without much effort. Animals strong enough to drag a kill straight up a hillside. They heard a human voice and ran. Not just startled, they fled the scene entirely, at rates matching or exceeding how fast they fled the sound of barking dogs. And here's the part that matters most. Many of them abandoned the kill itself. Food they had already caught. Food they were in the middle of eating. From a survival standpoint, that's not a small decision. Every calorie spent making that kill is gone, unreplaced. A predator walking away from a meal is functionally choosing to work for free that night. And they did it anyway because the discomfort of a human voice nearby outweighed the cost of hunger. This isn't an isolated result. Lions in South Africa's Kruger National Park measurably reduce their movement in areas with more human activity. Tigers in India route around villages, even when those villages sit inside otherwise perfect tiger habitat. It's not that these animals can't attack, it's that, at a species level, over thousands of generations, they've decided we're not worth the risk. Animals have a word for what you are. Not prey, not predator. Something worse. Unknown. And in the wild, unknown gets you killed faster than dangerous does. Biologists call this neophobia fear of the unfamiliar. Most large predators have it for a very good reason. In the wild, the things you don't recognize are usually the things most likely to kill you. A new smell, a new sound, a shape in the dark that matches nothing in memory. The smart move is always to avoid it. Humans trigger neophobia hard. We carry fire, we carry metal, we carry synthetic materials that have never existed in nature, anywhere, ever. Your sweat alone is chemically alien to every animal in that forest. You don't just smell different, you smell like nothing that has ever existed in nature before, because biologically speaking, you don't belong there anymore. To a wolf or a bear, a sleeping human in a tent doesn't register as food. It registers as a threat they haven't figured out yet. But here's what really locks it in. Humans have been killing large predators for a very long time, hundreds of thousands of years. We were hunting wolves, lions, bears, and big cats before we had written language. We've driven multiple apex predators completely to extinction: the dire wolf, the cave lion, the American cheetah. Gone, largely because of us. Every predator alive today is alive because its ancestors were afraid of you. The ones that weren't aren't here to pass that lesson on. So when you see a wolf keep its distance, you're not looking at fearless nature. You're looking at the last surviving descendants of fear itself. A sleeping deer is still just a deer. A sleeping human could have a spear in its hand. And the evidence backs this up everywhere. In regions where large predators have had consistent contact with humans for generations, they give us a wide berth without exception. In regions where animals have never encountered humans at all, they're actually more curious and less afraid. The fear isn't instinct, it's inherited memory taught generation after generation until it became permanent. There's a second layer to this that has nothing to do with memory at all, it's just shape. When you stand up, you're tall, upright. And that upright, two-legged silhouette reads as something close to a threat display. To most animals, it's the same posture a gorilla uses to look intimidating. The same posture a bear takes when it wants to seem bigger than it is. A creature that walks around like that as its default mode doesn't read as easy prey. It reads as something that's already posturing. Even asleep, even flattened out and unconscious, your shape is still wrong for the role you'd need to play to get hunted easily. So if predators are this careful, this disciplined, this afraid of us, why do attacks happen at all? The answer isn't that the system fails. It's that the system breaks, and it only breaks three ways. 1. Food. A bear that's learned to associate campsites with food stops seeing humans as a threat and starts seeing them as a source. A fed bear is genuinely dangerous, not because it got brave, but because the equation changed. 2. Desperation. A starving predator, injured and unable to hunt normally, may override its instincts out of pure necessity. The man-eating lions of Tsavo, the ones that killed dozens of railway workers in Kenya in 1898, were both later found to have severe dental damage. The same pattern shows up again with the Champawat tiger, responsible for hundreds of deaths across India and Nepal in the early 1900s. When the animal was finally killed, hunters found it had been shot in the mouth years earlier, shattering 2 of its canine teeth. It physically could not hunt its natural prey anymore. It didn't choose humans. Injury and circumstance left it almost nothing else. This is the pattern every time. Not a predator that got bold, a predator that got broken. 3. Surprise. A human who accidentally corners an animal, stumbles across a mother with cubs, or reaches into a space where something is hiding gets attacked not as prey, but as a threat. The animal isn't hunting, it's defending. Notice what's not on that list. A predator that calmly chose to attack a sleeping, non-threatening human for food. That almost never happens. Wolves and other social predators are obsessively tuned to hierarchy. When they look at any group of animals, they're running a calculation: who's dominant, who's vulnerable, who's in charge here. Researchers who study wolf behavior have documented something strange. When wolves encounter sleeping humans in the wild, they frequently circle without approaching. They observe from a distance. They're running the same calculation they've run on 1,000 other animals. But a sleeping human breaks the math. No submission, no dominance display, no posture, no answer. Just a calm, unresponsive creature that doesn't seem to register the wolf's presence at all. And to a wolf, confusion isn't an invitation. It's a red flag with no instructions on it. And the safest thing to do with a red flag you don't understand is leave it alone. That confusion is your protection. There's one more thing working in your favor, and it's been there the entire time inside you, not outside the tent. You don't sleep the way you think you sleep. Your brain moves through cycles down into deep, slow-wave sleep, then back up into lighter stages, including REM, where your brain is actually quite active. And during those lighter stages, your brain stays surprisingly responsive to the world around it. Unfamiliar sounds are far more likely to break through into awareness than familiar ones. Scientists call this the sentinel function of sleep. Even while resting, your brain keeps a partial watch running in the background, filtering, flagging, listening for anything that doesn't belong. A twig snapping the wrong way, something heavy moving through brush, a shift in the air that comes with something large getting closer. The humans in our past who slept too deeply, who tuned out the world completely, simply didn't wake up as often as the ones who slept lighter. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the light sleepers were the ones who survived long enough to pass it on. So while you feel completely helpless lying there in the dark, you're not running on nothing. You're running a fairly sophisticated early warning system. Not perfect, not foolproof, but present. Awake in its own way, even while you're not. The National Park Service records every significant wildlife encounter across U.S. parks. Millions of people camp in bear and mountain lion territory every single year. The number of fatal predator attacks on sleeping campers across all recorded national park history, effectively 0. You are statistically more likely to be struck by lightning inside the park than to be attacked by a predator while you sleep in it. more likely to get injured driving to the trailhead than mauled in your tent. The fear and the reality are so far apart, it's almost hard to believe until you understand everything that's quietly working in your favor the moment you close your eyes. Here's the part that should genuinely change how you see all of this, because the fear you've been hearing about doesn't just protect you, it reshapes everything around you. That same UC Santa Cruz puma study uncovered something nobody expected. When pumas avoid areas with high human activity, the deer in those areas face less predation. Deer populations rise. Rising deer populations overgraze the vegetation. Meanwhile, smaller predators, coyotes, bobcats, foxes also keep their distance from us, which means the rodents they'd normally control start expanding too. One species inherited fear, rippling outward through an entire food web: deer, plants, rodents, smaller predators all shifting, all because of something most of them will never even see. We didn't just make ourselves safe. We rewired an entire ecosystem's behavior just by being the thing evolution taught it to avoid. So here's what's actually happening tonight while you're lying there listening to the trees. Somewhere out there, something that could kill you in under 4 seconds is awake, alert, and aware of exactly where you are. It has been for hours, and it has already made its decision. It's not coming. Not because it can't, because somewhere in the oldest part of its brain, written by 10,000 generations of ancestors who tested you and lost, there's a single permanent instruction. Leave the strange ones alone. You were never the prey in this story. You were always the reason the monsters stay in the trees. Sleep well. They already have.